"I was sold for $6, she cried. And he said, "You were never for sale in my eyes." The planet Korath. 9 was nothing like the bright, busy worlds Lyra had imagined when she first left Earth. The sky was a dull gray, choked with smoke from massive factories that seemed to stretch forever. Towers of steel and glass rose like jagged teeth from the ground, and long lines of cargo trucks moved slowly through the streets. The air smelled of oil, ash, and metal, and even from the sky the planet looked cold and harsh. Lyra walked with careful steps, keeping her hood pulled over her face. She tried not to look at the other humans moving in the streets. Most had blank expressions, tired eyes and hands that trembled from hard work or fear. They weren't here by choice. She had heard whispers about Korath, 9 before she arrived, a place where humans were bought and sold, where a single person could be treated like an object, traded for a handful of credits. The thought made her stomach twist. She tightened her grip on the small satchel she carried. Inside were the few things she had managed to keep from her old life: her holopad, a small photo of her mother, and a thin, worn notebook filled with drawings and notes. That notebook was the only place she still felt safe, the only reminder that she was still herself, even in a place that wanted to strip that away. It was late afternoon when she found herself in the shadow of the auction hall. The building towered over the streets, dark metal walls scarred with marks from past fights and protests. Smoke poured from the vents at the top, and the sound of machinery mixed with distant screams, laughter, and the occasional harsh shout. This was the heart of Korath, 9's slave market, and Lyra could feel the weight of it even before she entered. Inside, the hall was a maze of cages, chains, and raised platforms. Humans and alien workers alike moved in a steady, forced rhythm, herded by guards with energy whips that crackled through the air. The auctioneer, a tall, thin man with a face that seemed almost skeletal, stood at the front. His voice echoed through the hall, cold and smooth. "Next," he called. Lyra's heart pounded. She had heard stories of people being sold for nothing. Credits, favors, sometimes even for... She didn't want to be next, but before she could find a hiding spot, a guard grabbed her arm. "You're up," the guard said, his grip firm. Lyra struggled, but he was stronger. Panic surged through her chest, and she felt tears burning behind her eyes. On the platform, she saw a small crowd of bidders, some human, some alien. They looked bored, their eyes scanning her like she was a piece of equipment. Lyra felt herself shrink under their gaze, but she forced herself to stand tall. She would not show weakness. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed. "Ah, a young one, fresh and strong. Who will start the bidding?" The first offer was 6 credits. Lyra froze. 6? That was less than the price of a simple meal in the outer colonies. 6 credits for her life, her freedom, her dignity. Her chest tightened and a cry escaped her lips. "I am not for sale," she shouted, surprising even herself. The crowd chuckled, some muttering words she didn't understand, and the auctioneer raised an eyebrow. "Ah, the spirit is alive," he said. "But alas, everyone has a price." Lyra's stomach sank. Maybe he was right. Maybe she did have a price. But a small, steady voice inside her refused to give up. She had always been clever, quick, and brave. Maybe, just maybe, someone out there would see her not as a commodity, but as a human being. And then she saw him. He was standing at the edge of the crowd, partly hidden in the shadows. Tall, strong, with dark hair and piercing eyes. He watched her not as a bidder, not as a predator, but with something that made her chest tighten with hope. His gaze was calm, steady, and most importantly, kind. "You're not for sale," he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. Lyra blinked, unsure if she imagined it. She had never heard anyone say those words before in this place. Her throat tightened. Hope felt dangerous here, like a flame that could be crushed instantly, but she held on to it. The auction continued, the crowd murmuring as they increased the offer slightly. Lyra's heart sank with each step, but the man in the shadows didn't move. Instead, he watched, silent and unwavering. When the gavel finally fell, Lyra felt a hand on her shoulder. Startled, she turned, expecting the harsh grip of a guard. Instead, it was him. "Come with me," he said. His voice was calm, firm, and strangely comforting. Before she could respond, the guards noticed him. "Hey!" "You! Stop!" one shouted, raising his whip. But the man moved with surprising speed, pulling Lyra behind him and darting through a side corridor. The whip cracked in the air but missed them by inches. Lyra ran, her legs pumping, her heart racing. The corridors twisted and turned, filled with the clanking of machines and the shouts of guards. She barely dared to breathe. Every instinct told her this was impossible, that they would be caught, that she was about to be sold for 6 credits. But he didn't stop. Not once. He led her to a small, hidden lift, and within moments they were soaring above the industrial sprawl of Korath. 9. Outside the lift doors, the city stretched endlessly, dark and oppressive, but in the distance, stars sparkled like diamonds, promising freedom. Once they were safely away, Lyra finally found her voice. Who are you?" she asked, breathless, fear and hope battling inside her. The man smiled faintly. "Someone who refuses to believe that humans can be bought or sold. I'm Kale." Lyra stared at him. Kale. The name felt strange, but somehow powerful. Why help me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because you're not for sale," Kale said again, his eyes locking with hers. "Not in my eyes, not in anyone who matters. You have value, Lyra. And it's more than any number of credits could ever measure." Lyra wanted to cry. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to believe him. After everything, someone saw her as a person, not an object. For the first time since arriving on Korath. Have 9? Lyra felt a spark of hope. Maybe she could survive this world. Maybe she could fight back. Maybe, just maybe, she was not powerless. As Kale led her through hidden passages in the city, Lyra noticed the small signs of resistance: graffiti with symbols of freedom, hidden tech devices, messages in secret languages. The underground network existed, and now she was part of it. By the time night fell, Lyra was sitting on the deck of a small, battered freighter, staring out at the stars. The engines hummed softly, carrying them away from Korath. 9, away from the auction, away from fear. Kale stood beside her, watching her carefully. "You're safe for now," he said. "But the world out there, it's dangerous. You need to be ready." Lyra nodded, determination hardening in her chest. "I will be," she said. "I won't let them define me. I won't be a number, or a credit, or a pawn. I'll..." Kale smiled, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "Good. That's the first step. Humanity always has a way of surviving. Sometimes it's brains, sometimes courage, sometimes both, and sometimes—" He looked at her intently. "It's hope." Lyra looked at the stars again, thinking of her mother, her old life, and the future she wanted to build. The universe was big, full of danger and darkness, but for the first time, she believed she had a place in it. She believed she could make a difference. The freighter soared higher, leaving the gray industrial sprawl behind. Lyra's heart raced with possibilities, fear and hope tangled together. She didn't know what awaited her, but for the first time she felt something powerful. Choice. And choice was freedom. The freighter hummed quietly as it glided through the blackness of space. Outside, stars stretched endlessly, silent and indifferent to the struggles of a small human girl and the man who had saved her. Lyra sat on a crate, her fingers brushing the edges of her notebook. The pages were worn, filled with sketches, notes, and dreams. She had clung to it through the auction, and now, in the quiet of the ship, it felt like a lifeline. Kale was in the cockpit, his hands steady on the controls, eyes scanning the star maps. Every now and then he glanced back at her, as if measuring her resolve, testing if she could handle what lay ahead. Lyra felt a mixture of fear and determination. The universe was vast and dangerous, but Kale had shown her that it was possible to survive, and maybe even fight back.
"You're quiet," Kale said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, yet firm.
Lyra looked up. I. About the auction, the people, the others. Her voice faltered. How can people be treated like that? Sold? Like objects? Kale's eyes darkened, and he let out a slow breath. It's not right, he said. But there are always those who see others as tools or property. They think power comes from owning. But strength comes from more than that. Strength comes from courage, from intelligence, and from refusing to be broken. Lyra nodded slowly. The words were inspiring, but they felt almost too big for her. She was just a girl, small, scared, and alone in a vast galaxy. Could she really be strong? Could she really matter? Kale seemed to read her thoughts. You already matter, Lyra.
You always did. Some people just don't see it.
But others, we see it, and we act. Lyra swallowed hard, letting his words sink in. For the first time, she felt the weight of hope. Maybe she could be more than a victim. Maybe she could fight. The freighter turned off the main space lanes and entered a hidden route Kale knew well. Small asteroids and derelict ships dotted the path, perfect for hiding from scanners and patrols. Lyra watched in awe as Kale maneuvered the ship with precision, weaving through the debris with ease. You've done this before, she said. Kale smiled faintly. A few times, he admitted. Survival is an art, and humans are surprisingly good at it once they learn the rules. Surprisingly good? Lyra asked, raising an eyebrow. Kale's smile widened.
Yes, you have courage, creativity, and stubbornness.
Qualities I respect. That's why I saved you. Lyra felt her chest swell. She wasn't sure if it was relief or pride, but it felt good to hear. For so long, she had felt invisible, worthless. Now someone saw her as more than a commodity. After hours of travel, the freighter arrived at a hidden space station. It floated like a ghost in the dark, half in shadow, half in light. The station was old, patched with metal plates and solar panels, but it was alive with activity. Humans and aliens moved through its corridors, working, trading, and sharing information. But it wasn't perfect, but it was free from the auction networks. Cale docked the freighter and led Lyra inside. The corridors were narrow, filled with people speaking in different languages. The air smelled of food, oil, and faint flowers someone had grown in small hydroponic patches. Lyra could hardly believe it. For the first time, she saw humans living and working together, not enslaved, not sold, but free. "This is where I come when I need help," Cale explained. "A place where humans and others can be themselves, where we fight back against the systems that try to control us." Lyra's eyes widened. "Fight back?" Cale nodded. "Yes. The auction houses, the slave traders, they think they're untouchable. But we have ways to stop them. We use our minds, our courage, and our humanity. They underestimate us, and that's their mistake."
Lyra felt a spark ignite inside her.
She had always believed humans were fragile, weak, and easily controlled. But maybe that wasn't true. Maybe humans had power, not just in strength, but in ingenuity and will. Cale led her to a common area filled with people of all ages and species. Some were repairing ships, others were working on strange devices, and a few were deep in discussion. A young girl no older than Lyra waved at them from across the room.
"Lyra, this is Sora," Cale said. "She's one of the people I've trained."
Smart, fast, and brave. Sora ran over and hugged Lyra briefly. "Don't worry," she said, smiling. "You're safe here. We help each other. That's what humans do." Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she hadn't known in months. For the first time, she felt part of something bigger than herself. Cale crouched next to her. "We have a lot to teach you," he said. "Not just how to survive, but how to fight back, to think, plan, and outsmart those who think they own others." Lyra nodded. "I want to learn. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did." "Good," Cale said. "That's the right attitude." The next few days were filled with training. Lyra learned to handle small tools and devices, to read star maps, and to understand the freighter's systems. Cale taught her how to think strategically, to anticipate problems, and to stay calm under pressure. It wasn't easy. Lyra often stumbled, frustrated at her mistakes. But Cale was patient, guiding her with steady encouragement. "You're learning," he said one evening as they watched the stars from the station's observation deck. "That's what matters. Humans survive because we adapt, because we keep trying no matter how hard things get." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of pride. She still feared the auction network, still remembered the guards and their cruel laughter, but she also felt something stronger: confidence. She could survive. She could fight. She could matter. But danger was never far away. A few nights later, alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed, and Cale grabbed Lyra's hand. "We've been spotted." "They know we're here." Lyra's heart pounded. "Who?" "The auction network," Cale said. "They don't like it when we help people escape. They'll come for us, and for you." Lyra felt a surge of fear, but Cale squeezed her hand. "Remember what I told you. Courage, brains, and hope. We'll get through this." They moved quickly through the corridors, avoiding patrols. Cale used small devices to jam sensors and create distractions. Lyra's heart raced as she realized how clever humans could be. The network had numbers and weapons, but humans had minds, and sometimes that was enough. When they reached the freighter, Cale handed her a small tool. "You'll need this," he said. "Think fast, act faster." Lyra nodded, gripping the device. She felt her nerves settle. She wasn't just running. She was ready to fight, ready to outsmart, ready to survive. The auction network attackers arrived moments later. Lyra watched as Cale directed the defenses, using clever maneuvers to mislead them. Then, with a deep breath, she activated her device, creating a blinding flash that forced the attackers to retreat. Cale looked at her with a mix of surprise and pride. "Not bad," he said.
You're learning fast. Lyra smiled, adrenaline still pumping. I won't be easy to catch, she said.
No, Cale agreed, and that's exactly why humans are strong. They never give up, even when the odds are against them. As the freighter left the station behind, Lyra leaned against the wall, catching her breath. She looked at Cale, then at the stars. She had survived auctions, she had escaped danger, and she had learned to fight back. Most importantly, she had discovered something she had almost forgotten: that humans were clever, brave, and unstoppable when they refused to give up. Cale sat beside her. "You're ready for what comes next," he said softly. "But the universe is bigger and more dangerous than you can imagine. The real test of humanity isn't survival. It's how we rise when everything tries to break us." Lyra nodded. She didn't know what awaited her, but she felt ready. She had courage, brains, and hope, the tools humans had always used to survive and thrive, and she would need them all in the battles to come. The freighter sped into the unknown, carrying Lyra and Cale deeper into the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of danger, wonder, and the promise of freedom. And Lyra, for the first time, truly felt alive. She was no longer a girl sold for 6 credits. She was human, she was strong, and she would never be, for the freighter hummed steadily through the darkness of space. Lyra sat at the navigation console, her fingers brushing over the holographic controls. Every beep and light made her heart race. She had learned the basics, but Cale had promised this was only the beginning. "Today," Cale said, standing behind her with his arms crossed, "you will see why humans are feared in the galaxy. Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of our minds, our ingenuity."
Lyra looked up at him, a mixture of excitement and nerves swirling in her stomach.
What?
"What do you mean?" she asked. Cale smiled faintly. "I'll show you, but first, you need to understand the rules. Always think ahead, always adapt, and never underestimate your opponent." Lyra nodded. She had never felt so alive, so determined. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running just to survive. She was learning to fight, to think, to win. Their first stop was a derelict space station orbiting a small, rocky planet. The station had been abandoned for decades, yet Cale's sensors detected movement inside. "This is perfect," he said. "A real test. Observe, plan, and adapt." Lyra followed him into the station's shadowed corridors. The air was stale, the lights flickering, rusted machinery hung from the walls, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the halls. Lyra's senses sharpened. Every creak, every shadow could hide danger. Cale handed her a small scanner. "Use this to detect energy sources, movement, anything unusual. Humans excel because we notice things others miss." Lyra nodded, holding the device tightly. Her hands shook slightly, but she forced herself to focus. Slowly, she moved forward, scanning the area. The scanner beeped softly. There, around the corner, 2 figures moving cautiously. Humans, likely unaware of Cale and Lyra's presence. "Good," Cale whispered. Now observe. Think. How would you approach them? Lyra crouched behind a crate, studying the figures. They carried small weapons, but they moved predictably, checking corners, glancing back at the hall. Lyra's mind raced. She noticed a control panel near the ceiling, wires hanging loose. If she could trigger it, she could create a small power surge, distracting them without harm. Cale raised an eyebrow. You're thinking creatively. I like that. Lyra's fingers flew over the panel. Sparks flew and the lights flickered. The two figures froze, startled by the sudden surge. Taking advantage of their confusion, Cale and Lyra slipped past them, silent and unseen. See? Cale said once they were safely down the corridor. Brains over brawn. Humans are underestimated because we don't follow predictable patterns. That's our edge. Lyra felt a rush of pride. She had done it. Outsmarted experienced fighters. Her heart pounded, but it wasn't fear. It was excitement. Over the next few days, Cale put Lyra through more training. She learned to pilot the freighter, repair small systems, and hack into secure networks. He taught her to anticipate danger, to plan multiple steps ahead, and to use her surroundings to her advantage. You're doing well, Cale said one evening as they floated near a gas giant with swirling storms. But now it's time for a real test. The auction network has a convoy moving slaves through this sector. We're going to intercept it. Lyra's stomach tightened. This was real danger, not simulations, not practice runs. People's lives were at stake. She felt fear, but it mingled with determination. She had trained for this moment. She wouldn't fail. The freighter accelerated, weaving through the asteroid field. On the view screen, the convoy came into view. 3 heavily armed ships moving slowly, transporting prisoners. Lyra studied their patterns, noting the patrol drones circling them. Cale glanced at her. You plan our approach. Use your mind, Lyra. Humans survive because we think, not because we charge blindly. Lyra took a deep breath and began analyzing the situation. The convoy's shields were weakest at the edges. If they approached from the shadow of the asteroid belt, they could slip past sensors. A small energy pulse could disable the drones temporarily. Then, Cale could board the ships and release the prisoners. Cale watched her, impressed. Good. That's exactly the kind of thinking humans are capable of. The freighter moved silently through the darkness, hugging the shadows of the asteroids. Lyra's pulse raced. She activated the energy pulse device and the drones flickered and dropped from the sky. Cale maneuvered the freighter closer, using her calculations perfectly. As they approached the first ship, Lyra noticed the prisoners inside, human faces wide with fear, some already bruised and battered. Her chest tightened, and her resolve hardened. They couldn't fail. Cale boarded the ship first, disabling guards silently. Lyra followed, using her cleverness to avoid detection. She guided the prisoners to hidden exits, showing them the path to freedom. Her mind worked quickly, solving problems she hadn't even imagined a few weeks ago. By the time the second ship was reached, Lyra had fully grasped her role. She was no longer just a rescued girl. She was a fighter, a strategist, and a beacon of hope for those trapped. The final ship posed the biggest challenge. Its captain was clever, experienced, and suspicious. Lyra studied his patterns, noting a slight hesitation whenever he checked the sensors. Using that hesitation, she created a minor distraction, a loose cable sparking on the deck, drawing his attention while Cale and the freed prisoners moved past. It worked perfectly. Within minutes, all 3 ships were secured, prisoners freed, and the convoy disabled. The freed humans looked at Lyra with awe and gratitude. For the first time, she truly understood the power of her actions. Cale clapped her on the shoulder. You did well, Lyra. Today you saw why humans are feared, not because of weapons, but because of courage, creativity, and the ability to think when others panic. She had saved lives, outsmarted the enemy, and proven to herself that she was capable. Her fear had transformed into confidence, and she could feel herself growing stronger with every passing day. That night, Lyra sat in the freighter's observation deck, staring at the stars. She thought of the people she had saved, of the auctions she had escaped, and of the dangers that still awaited her. Her journey had only just begun, but she felt ready. Humans were not weak. Humans were resourceful, brave, and unstoppable when they refused to give up. Cale joined her, leaning on the railing. You've come a long way, he said softly. But remember, this is only the beginning. The auction network will retaliate. They'll learn about your cleverness, and they'll try to destroy what we've built. That's the way of the universe. But you're ready for it. Lyra looked at him, determination blazing in her eyes. I won't let them win. Not me, not anyone I can save. Humans survive because we refuse to be broken. That's what makes us strong. Cale smiled, pride evident in his expression. Exactly. And now, you're part of that strength. Humanity's edge is in our minds, our courage, and our will.
You've seen it firsthand. Never forget it.
Lyra nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. She had escaped slavery, survived deadly missions, and learned the power of human ingenuity. And this was only the start. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of injustice, but she would face it, not as a victim, but as a human capable of incredible courage and brilliance. The freighter accelerated toward the outer rim, carrying Lyra, Cale, and the newly freed humans to safety. But in the shadows, sensors blinked and alarms quietly activated. The auction network was aware now. They had been outsmarted once, but they would not forget. Lyra knew this. She also knew one unshakable truth. Humans were never truly powerless. They adapted, they fought, and they survived. And she, Lyra, was ready to show the galaxy exactly what humans were capable of. For the first time in her life, she felt unstoppable. The freighter drifted in the shadow of a rocky asteroid cluster. Lyra leaned over the controls, her mind racing as she studied the map Cale had projected in holographic light. Below them lay Korath, 9, the industrial planet she had once thought was her prison. Now it was the site of their mission, a daring raid to free dozens of humans still trapped in the auction network. Cale stood behind her, arms crossed, watching her work. You've come a long way, Lyra, he said. But today we'll test everything you've learned. Courage, strategy, quick thinking, and the humanity that makes us stronger than any weapon. Lyra swallowed, her hands tightening on the console. Fear hummed in her chest, but it was no longer paralyzing. She had survived auctions, evaded bounty hunters, and saved a convoy. Today, she would take the fight directly to those who had enslaved others. We'll need a plan, Cale continued. The auction complex is heavily guarded. There are drones, energy shields, and patrols. We can't rush in blindly. Humans survive and win because we think, not because we charge. Lyra nodded. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing the layout Cale provided. She noticed patterns in the guards' patrols and gaps in the drone sweeps. There was a ventilation shaft that led near the holding cells, small, risky, but potentially perfect for a stealth approach. Cale raised an eyebrow. You've got the right idea. Lead the way, Lyra. Her heart pounded as they prepared the freighter for descent. The asteroid cluster offered them cover, hiding the ship from planetary sensors. As they approached, Lyra's mind raced. Every detail mattered: timing, movement, and the smallest distraction could mean the difference between success and failure. The freighter touched down on the outskirts of the complex. Shadows stretched long under the harsh lights, and the hum of machinery echoed through the air. Lyra and Cale donned light armor and took the small shuttle pods, moving quietly toward the ventilation shaft. Lyra led the way, squeezing through the narrow metal tunnel. The sound of her own breathing seemed impossibly loud, but Cale's presence beside her steadied her nerves. "Remember," he whispered, "humans survive because we adapt. Trust your instincts." When they reached the exit near the holding cells, Lyra paused. She peeked through the grating and saw dozens of humans inside, their eyes wide with fear. Some were huddled together, others pacing nervously. She felt a pang in her chest. This had been her. She remembered the terror, the hopelessness. "We're here to get you out," she whispered to herself. And then louder, "Everyone, stay calm. Follow us, and you'll be safe." Cale gave a subtle nod. "On your mark, Lyra." She took a deep breath and pressed a small panel on the wall. Sparks flew, and the energy shield protecting the cell doors flickered and went down. The guards outside were momentarily distracted, investigating the sudden malfunction. Lyra and Cale moved swiftly, opening the doors and ushering the prisoners out. Some hesitated, unsure if it was a trap, but Lyra's calm voice and confident presence reassured them. She had been in their place once. She knew what it felt like to be trapped, and she used that knowledge to guide them. As they led the humans toward the shuttle pods, a group of guards noticed the breach. Energy whips crackled, and shouts echoed through the hall. Lyra's pulse raced, but she didn't panic. She had trained for this moment. Using a small device, she triggered the emergency sprinklers, causing the floor to become slippery. Guards stumbled, cursing as Cale and the group moved past them. One guard raised a blaster, aiming at a prisoner. Without thinking, Lyra rolled a small crate in front of him, knocking him off balance and giving Cale time to disarm him. The freed humans followed her lead, moving quickly and carefully. Fear had not paralyzed them. They were inspired by Lyra's courage. "Good," Cale whispered as they reached the shuttle pods. "Humans survive because we inspire each other as much as we fight." Lyra nodded. It felt strange to hear that, but she understood it. Humans weren't just strong because of weapons or numbers. They were strong because of their hearts, their minds, and their refusal to give up. The shuttle pods lifted off, carrying the liberated humans toward the freighter. Alarms blared in the complex below, and Cale piloted the freighter to intercept. Lyra scanned the area, noticing patrol drones closing in. She activated a small jammer, disrupting their signals and buying them precious seconds. One drone veered dangerously close. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls, and she managed to send a small magnetic pulse, drawing it away from the group. Another drone came, and Cale fired a precision shot, disabling it. Every action was precise, every movement calculated. Humans survived, and today, humans were winning. The freed humans looked at Lyra in awe. They had been trapped, hopeless, and terrified. Now they were free, because a single human girl had thought, acted, and led them. She felt a surge of pride, but also humility. This wasn't about her. It was about humanity, about showing that even in the darkest places, humans could rise. Once the group was safely aboard the freighter, Cale set a course for the outer rim, away from Korath. 9. The freed humans began to relax, speaking softly among themselves, their expressions a mix of relief and disbelief. Lyra watched them, feeling a deep sense of purpose. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and she had come through not just alive, but stronger. Cale approached her. "You did well," he said quietly. "Today, you weren't just a survivor, you were a leader. Humans survive because we inspire others, because we think, and because we never give up. You've shown all of that." Lyra smiled faintly, her chest warm with pride. I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. Cale shook his head. "No, you could have done it on your own. You've grown, Lyra. That's what matters. The universe underestimates humans because they think we are fragile. But we're clever, determined, and resilient. That's our edge." That night, the freighter floated near a calm nebula, the stars reflected in the endless expanse of space. Lyra sat on a crate, looking at the faces of the people they had saved. Some were asleep, exhausted from their ordeal. Others whispered softly, sharing stories of the auctions, of the horrors they had endured. Lyra thought of her own time in the auction, of the fear, the loneliness, and the moments when she had almost given up. Now she felt a fire inside her, a determination to fight, to protect, and to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. Cale joined her on the deck. "You've learned something important today," he said. "Humans aren't strong because we have the biggest guns or the fastest ships. We're strong because we have brains, courage, and heart. And when we work together, there's very little we cannot overcome." Lyra nodded, staring at the stars. "I understand now," she said softly. "Humans survive, and we can thrive, even when the universe tries to break us." Hael smiled. "And tomorrow we'll continue the fight. There are more prisoners, more auctions, more people who need to know that humans refuse to be owned." Lyra felt a rush of anticipation. She had faced fear, danger, and despair, and come out stronger. She had learned that humanity's true power lay in its ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable spirit. And now, she would use that power to free others, to inspire hope, and to fight injustice wherever it existed. As the freighter drifted further into the nebula, Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. She was no longer the girl sold for 6 credits. She was human. She was strong. And together, she and Cale would show the galaxy exactly what humanity was capable of. For the first time in her life, she believed that nothing, not auctions, not fear, not oppression, could define her. Humans survived, thrived, and rose above every challenge. And Lyra was ready to lead the way.